Thank you for being here. We've just asked for unanimous consent on the floor of the Senate to bring the Special Counsel Independence and Integrity Act to the floor. This was legislation that passed the Judiciary Committee on April 26th with a 14-7 vote. It's rare that there is such bipartisan legislation in the Judiciary Committee, yet it passed. It's languished here ever since. In the intervening time, we have sent 49 nominations, district and circuit court judges, to the Senate floor for a vote. 50 have received a vote. There was one in the queue. So it's not that everything from the Judiciary Committee has been laying here waiting for action. We've done a lot, and these have been good votes. We've needed to move these judges through, but this is priority now. The justification given in April for not bringing it to a floor vote was that nobody was being fired. There's nothing to see here. Special Counsel Mueller was not in any danger. That clearly is not the case now. The Attorney General has been fired, and the authority and the oversight for the investigation was taken away from Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General, and given to someone who has not been Senate confirmed, who has expressed open hostility to the Mueller investigation. So, Senator Coons.
And thank you, Senator Flake. I appreciate the ongoing working partnership I enjoy with my colleague on the Judiciary Committee and on Foreign Relations, Senator Flake. We just called for a unanimous consent vote, and the Majority Leader came out and objected. I appreciate that there are many colleagues, mostly in the other party, who have said there's nothing to worry about here, that there is no reason to be concerned, but they support Special Counsel Robert Mueller being able to complete his investigation. As Senator Flake has said, I couldn't agree more. We need to realize that just a week ago, the President compelled the resignation of his Attorney General, his closest ally in the early stages of his campaign. And the reason he fired Attorney General Jeff Sessions was because he'd recused himself. The President, just the same day that he compelled the resignation of the Attorney General, tweeted about the Mueller investigation being a hoax. He has replaced the Attorney General not with the Deputy Attorney General, which would have been appropriate under the succession statute, but instead with an acting Attorney General, Matt Whitaker, whose legal ideas are well outside the mainstream, whose relevant experience is significantly below that of the Deputy Attorney General. Those questions, the constitutionality of his appointment, have been challenged now in a lawsuit brought by the state of Maryland. But the larger issue that concerns me, and that I think concerns my friend Senator Flake, is public statements made a year ago by Matthew Whitaker, now the acting Attorney General of the United States, questioning the validity and the conduct of the Special Counsel's investigation. If not now, when? It seems to me it's important for us to remember the whole reason there is a special counsel is President Trump fired the FBI director and then went on television himself to say he did it because of, quote, that Russia thing. The President has now taken another, I think, precipitous step in compelling the resignation of his Attorney General and replacing him not with the appropriate successor, but with a handpicked successor who has a history of making public statements challenging the investigation. This would be an easy step to take. It is a bipartisan bill that has been ready for floor action for months. We are confident it would get 60 votes. If given a vote, it is the Majority Leader who controls the floor agenda, and by compelling, through a unanimous consent request, action today, Senator Flake has put us in a place where it's clear that there's an unwillingness to act. My hope is that we will, in the days ahead, find additional colleagues who are willing to join with Senator Flake and me. This is a bill that continues to enjoy the support of its four principal initial co-sponsors, Senator Tillis, Senator Graham, myself, Senator Booker, and I'm confident we'll get 60 votes if brought to the floor. So with that, I think it is time for us to move from speeches to action. I appreciate Senator Flake's action today, and I'm hopeful we will find other colleagues will agree as they reflect on the very perilous situation that Special Counsel Mueller's investigation is in today as a result of the President's actions of a week ago.
Senator Flake, Mitch McConnell said over and over again that there's no need to do this. Does he know something that you don't? Is that wishful thinking? Where do you think that comfort level with doing nothing comes from?
Well, the President has said that he's not going to move on the Special Counsel, but that's not enough. That's not enough, and perhaps that's what gives comfort to the Majority Leader. I would ask him, but it doesn't give comfort to me. When this was brought to the floor in April, it was said, there's nothing to see here, there's nothing going on. But now that clearly is not the case. When you have the Attorney General fired and the oversight for the investigation moved to someone who has not received Senate confirmation, who has expressed open hostility to the Mueller investigation, then there's a problem. And I think that most of our colleagues feel the same way.
So given that concern that there's someone with open hostility towards the Mueller investigation, should Matt Whitaker recuse himself from overseeing the investigation?
Yes, absolutely.
Senator Flake?
Yes. Yes, well, I think he shouldn't be in that position at all, to have oversight over the investigation. That's what seems unconstitutional. To step out of the succession that they've always had, the same type of succession. It goes to the deputy who was already performing that function. So it wasn't as if they just leapfrogged over the deputy. They took this investigation from him and gave it to somebody who has not received Senate confirmation. That does not seem constitutional to me.
And just today, Chuck Grassley said that he was not going to have hearings before the end of the year with Matt Whitaker. Do you think it's important for the Senate Judiciary Committee to question Matt Whitaker in an open setting?
I do. The ranking member has sent a letter to the chairman that's public, saying that we should have Matt Whitaker in front of us to ask questions about his priorities, his values, his conduct, and whether or not he'll recuse himself in this context.
When you hear some of the statements and what has been unearthed in terms of statements he has made in the past, not just with regard to the special counsel, but with regard to his own jurisprudence and what he thinks, for example, of Marbury versus Madison, to say that that was wrongly decided, kind of undercuts our entire system of justice here that we've enjoyed for a couple of centuries. So that's the type of thing that he would be asked if he were subjected to Senate confirmation. But he hasn't been, other than as U.S. Attorney in Iowa, they don't receive nearly the scrutiny that somebody who is going for Attorney General would receive.
As a candidate for the United States Senate, Matthew Whitaker is reported to have said that he believes in the principle of nullification, that it is possible for states to nullify federal legal ruling. We fought a civil war over that. That's a fairly foundational principle of American jurisprudence of more than a century now. There are a number of truly alarming statements that Matthew Whitaker's made in the past. He ought to come in front of the Judiciary Committee and explain why he's the appropriate person to be serving as the acting Attorney General of the United States.
So it seems like your best avenue for the protection bill is through something you have leverage with, like the appropriations process. So what's the likelihood you can get enough people on board to use appropriations process to protect Mueller?
As you know, I'm an appropriator. I've discussed this with several other appropriators. We're not there yet. December 7th isn't yet the date. But Jerry Nadler, who is also the likely next chairman of the Judiciary Committee in the House, has suggested an end-of-year appropriation bill might be the right vehicle. I think what Senator Flake and I've done today is the right step for today, which is to ask for unanimous consent and say, we could do this right now. We could have a floor vote today. There's no need to put at risk the ongoing funding and functioning of the government of the United States. So we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. I would be willing to consider it as a vehicle.
Senator Flake, would you be willing to consider that?
Oh, sure. I'm not an appropriator, but when it comes to the vote on the floor for the appropriations bill, certainly.
And then is there any other leverage you think you have?
Well, I explained today, I have committed not to advance any more nominees through the Judiciary Committee. We've had hearings for 21. They're awaiting action, some of them tomorrow, and they will not receive my vote. And with the margins we have in the Judiciary Committee, it means that they will not move forward. Also, I will not vote for any who come to the floor. There are 32, I believe, awaiting action on the floor. Now, theoretically, if the Vice President comes and breaks a tie, if all Republicans are for and Democrats against, they would still pass. So that's not where my leverage is, but I'll use what I have.
Senator Flake, just to follow up on that, one of the criticisms, I think, of your criticism of the president is that you don't seem to act on it at times. So you voted for Kavanaugh and other judges. Is there any sense that you might waver on that when it comes down to it?
I've made this. I've used this leverage once with regard to judges. It was to receive a vote on tariffs, which we did, and I didn't vote on any until we receive that vote. I'm fully prepared to carry through with this.
Senators, I'm sorry, this may be a dumb question, but you can see that the president would never sign this bill, even if it ever got out of Congress and onto his desk. I mean, what real protection would something like this actually offer the special counsel beyond saying, okay, the Senate really doesn't want you to do this?
The president said he would never sign the bill that provided for mandatory sanctions against Russia. It passed the Senate by 98-2. I think history shows he signed it.
Senator Flake, on specifically what you're threatening or saying that you will do, if you get a vote, would you lift your hold on these judicial nominees and the vote goes down, or the House never takes it up, or are you insisting that
We're insisting
that you
on
get a result?
we're insisting on a vote. That's the letter that I sent to the majority leader on Friday. So he's had this over the weekend. He's known that this was coming. We're insisting on a vote. Now, I believe that if we have the vote, we'll pass overwhelmingly. And the pressure to put it as part of a must-pass spending bill, where the president will have to sign it, is a lot greater. So we just need the vote. We need the vote.
Have you spoken to your friend Paul Ryan about maybe the House doing something with this as well?
I haven't.
Not yet.
Senator Flake, can't Leader McConnell just wait you out at this point?
Sure. But there are a lot of judges that they want to get through before the first of the year. There are, like I said, 21 awaiting action in the Judiciary Committee, 32 on the floor. Theoretically, all of those could move in the lame duck session.
That's 53 judges.
It's not like the Senate's changing hands. They could just, bring them to the floor, bring them through committee again and to the floor again. in January.
Depending on
You have to
if
start
the
it
same,
all over.
you have to start it over again. So it's a tougher process than it seems.
How does Leader McConnell react to that? Because on the elections, the Republicans were like judicial nominations. He said next year in the next Congress, judicial nominations were the #1 key thing, lifetime appointments. So how did you react in your conversation when you said that you could hold all these nominations up?
Well, this conversation came before with regard to the vote on tariffs, with regard to the motion to instruct, and we got that vote. I don't think we would have had the threat not been made, or had I not held for a couple of weeks these nominees in the Judiciary Committee. So you use what leverage you have. This is priority now. Between April and now, the Attorney General wasn't fired. There wasn't this blatant move on the special counsel. There has been now, and that's the reason we're doing this. But thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you all very much.